The night was heavy with rain. Sheets of water fell from the sky as though the heavens themselves wept. Every clap of thunder rattled the fragile glass panes of Eleanor Bennett's small cottage on the outskirts of town. The house was modest, paint peeling on the shutters, the roof patched in several places, but to her, it was home. It was the same house where she had raised her 3 children, where she had bandaged scraped knees, cooked hot meals after long days, and whispered bedtime stories when the world felt too harsh for little hearts. That evening, Eleanor dressed with unusual care. She slipped into her best dress, an old navy blue one she had saved for special occasions, and polished her black shoes until they shone faintly under the lamp. She brushed her thinning gray hair neatly into a bun, her hands trembling with excitement. Tonight, she was invited to dinner at her son Lucas's new mansion. Her children were finally all together again. It had been weeks since she'd seen them, and though she missed them terribly, she reassured herself, they are just busy with their new lives. They still love me. On the counter sat a tin of her homemade chocolate chip cookies, the kind Lucas had always begged for as a child, the kind Emily had snuck before dinner, the kind Grace had once declared, better than any store-bought treat. Eleanor smiled as she secured the tin with a ribbon. She thought perhaps her children would taste them and remember the warmth of childhood, the sacrifices she made, and the love that never faded. She stepped outside with her umbrella, but the wind turned it inside out almost instantly. By the time she reached the mansion, she was soaked through, her thin coat clinging to her frame. Still, her heart fluttered with pride as she gazed at Lucas's new home. The house loomed like a palace, all gleaming glass and stone, with fountains at the gate and golden lights glowing inside. She whispered softly, "My children, look what you've achieved." But the moment she entered, the atmosphere shifted. Lucas greeted her with a tight smile, his designer suit crisp, his shoes shining. His eyes flickered to her damp coat and the old cookie tin in her hands. "Mom," he said flatly, "you really didn't have to bring that." Emily, wearing a diamond necklace that sparkled under the chandelier, wrinkled her nose. "Honestly, Lucas, you should have told her this was a formal dinner. She looks so out of place." Grace, the youngest, leaned against the marble staircase scrolling through her phone. Without looking up, she muttered, "Mom, why do you always dress like you're stuck in the past? It's embarrassing." Eleanor's heart faltered. She opened her mouth to speak, but her voice caught. I thought you might like the cookies. I made them the way you used to love." Emily sighed dramatically, exchanging glances with her siblings. "Mom, we're not kids anymore. We don't need your old traditions. We've moved on." Moved on. The words stung like icy rain. Dinner was no better. At the long oak table, Eleanor sat quietly, while her children laughed about business deals, luxury vacations, and expensive cars. They never once asked about her health, her days, or her little garden back home. Whenever she tried to join the conversation, Lucas cut her off with a dismissive, "Mom, you wouldn't understand." At one point, she mentioned how proud she was of their success. Grace rolled her eyes and said, "Well, of course we're successful. Aunt Margaret left us $64 million. We didn't exactly start at zero like you did." The comment was a knife to Eleanor's chest. She remembered her late sister Margaret's will. Margaret had been wealthy, and instead of leaving even a fraction to Eleanor, the sister who had stood by her in sickness, she had chosen to leave everything to the children, believing it would secure their futures. Eleanor had not envied the decision. She was happy for her children. But she had never imagined that wealth would build a wall between them and her. After dessert, Eleanor rose to leave. She stood by the door, holding the cookie tin, her voice soft, "I'm proud of you, all of you. Just don't forget, family matters more than money." Lucas frowned, his tone sharp. "Mom, we're adults. We don't need you hovering over us anymore. Honestly, sometimes you hold us back." The room went silent. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, but none of them moved to comfort her. Emily crossed her arms, avoiding eye contact. Grace turned back to her phone, scrolling. So Eleanor walked out. The rain had not stopped. It pounded against her fragile frame, soaking her hair, seeping through her coat. Her shoes squelched in the mud as she walked slowly down the driveway, the golden mansion glowing behind her. She looked back once, hoping, just hoping, that one of them would come after her, umbrella in hand, calling, "Wait, Mom." But the door remained closed. She whispered to herself, trembling in the cold, I gave them everything, and they gave me nothing. Each step away from the mansion felt heavier than the last. The world blurred in her teary eyes, and the rain mingled with her sorrow. That night, Eleanor Bennet learned the cruel truth. The children she had sacrificed everything for, her sleep, her youth, her very dreams, had traded her love for wealth, leaving her to stand abandoned in the rain. Right finger. That scene 1 fully expanded to about 1,000 words, rich atmosphere, long build-up, and deep emotional impact. Would you like me to now expand scene 2 in the same detailed way, about 1,000 words too, so the contrast of their downfall and return to the mother feels just as powerful? Months rolled by after that stormy night. Winter spread its icy fingers across Eleanor Bennet's little town. Frost clung to the edges of her cottage windows each morning, and her breath formed clouds in the cold air as she worked in her garden, wrapping her plants against the chill. Though her heart had been broken by her children's cruelty, Eleanor refused to waste her days in bitterness. She remembered her late husband's words, spoken years ago: "You can't control how others treat you, Ellie, but you can control how much love you give the world." So, she gave. She volunteered at the community center twice a week, teaching neighborhood children how to read. She baked bread and shared it with elderly neighbors. She even found companionship in small moments, watching robins hop across her snow-dusted yard, drinking warm tea by the fire, and knitting blankets for babies at the local hospital. Her life was simple, yes, but it was not empty. Meanwhile, her own children, who once glittered like stars in high society, were beginning to fall from the sky. Lucas, who had been so proud of his mansion and fast-talking business partners, invested recklessly. He poured millions into a startup that promised quick returns but turned out to be fraudulent. Within months, his money evaporated. His mansion was repossessed, his luxury cars seized. He began drinking heavily, his once polished image unraveling. Emily, the sophisticated one draped in diamonds, had married a wealthy investor. At first, she believed she had secured her future. But her husband was exposed in a nationwide scandal, embezzlement and fraud that splashed across newspapers. Overnight, Emily's wealth turned to dust. The diamond necklace she once flaunted had to be sold to pay legal fees. She was left not only broke but humiliated, abandoned by the friends who had once crowded her lavish parties. And Grace, the carefree traveler who once posted endless pictures from Paris, Dubai, and Bali, found her fortune dwindling fast. Designer clothes, first-class flights, champagne-fueled nights, all of it drained her accounts. When the credit cards stopped working and the invitations stopped coming, she found herself stranded in a small apartment she could barely afford, alone and forgotten. For the first time, all 3 siblings tasted a life without privilege, without money to shield them. And in their darkest hours, their thoughts turned to the one person they had scorned, their mother. It was on a quiet spring evening when Eleanor heard the knock. She had been sitting by the fire, darning a blanket, when the sound startled her. She set down her needle and rose slowly, her joints aching from years of labor. When she opened the door, her breath caught. There they were, Lucas, Emily, and Grace. But not as she had last seen them. Gone were the fine suits, the designer dresses, the expensive perfumes. They looked weathered, older than their years, their eyes heavy with shame. Their clothes were wrinkled, their shoes scuffed. They were not the proud, glittering heirs of fortune anymore. They were just children. Her children. "Mom," Emily whispered, her voice trembling. Tears welled up in her eyes. We lost everything." Lucas looked down, unable to meet her gaze. "I made bad choices. I thought I was smart, but I was a fool." His voice cracked, the arrogance stripped away. Grace, the youngest, stepped forward and grabbed Eleanor's hand with desperation. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much I needed you until it was too late." Her sobs shook her thin shoulders. For a long moment, Eleanor said nothing. Her heart twisted with the memory of that rainy night, her children laughing in the golden glow of their mansion while she walked home alone, drenched and broken. The sting of their rejection still lived inside her. She could have turned them away. She could have said, "You made your choices. Live with them." But Eleanor was a mother. And a mother's love, though scarred, does not vanish so easily. She stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in," she said softly. "You're still my children." Inside, the warmth of her small cottage wrapped around them. The fire crackled, filling the silence. Eleanor ladled hot soup into bowls and set them on the worn wooden table. The smell of herbs and broth filled the room. The siblings sat awkwardly at first, staring at the humble meal, their pride slowly crumbling. As they ate, tears slipped down Emily's face. "We thought money was everything. We thought we didn't need anyone, not even you." She looked at her mother, guilt etched across her features. "We were wrong." Lucas put his spoon down, his voice low. "I thought I was too good for your advice. I thought success meant leaving you behind. But now, I see that everything I am, everything I ever was, came from your sacrifices." Grace wiped her tears with her sleeve. "I just wanted to be free, to live wild, but I ended up with nothing. You're the only one who's always been there, even when we didn't deserve it." Eleanor listened quietly, her hands folded in her lap. When they finished, she spoke. Her voice was gentle but firm. "Money comes and goes. Fortunes can disappear overnight. But respect, love, and family, those are treasures no one can steal. You forgot that. You forgot me. I cannot erase the pain of that night, but I will not let bitterness define me. If you want to rebuild, start with humility. Start with gratitude. And never again put wealth above the people who love you." The children nodded, their faces wet with tears. For the first time in months, they felt safe. Not because they had regained riches, but because they had returned to the arms of the woman who had given them life. That night, in the glow of a simple fire, surrounded by bowls of homemade soup, the Bennett family was mended, not by millions, not by gold, but by the unbreakable truth of a mother's love. And each of the children understood a lesson they would never forget. Money can vanish, but a mother's love is the greatest inheritance of all. Sparkle's moral of the story. Fortune without humility is fleeting. The greatest wealth we can ever hold is love, respect, and family.